we're going to change gears, and actually that was a phenomenal setup for what we're going to be talking about. And I really want to talk about our workforce and what role they play in terms of customer engagement and customer service. So there we go. That was loud. All right. So welcome, Kristen Santani with Guidehouse. You may not be familiar with Guidehouse, just a little bit of history. We're formerly PwC Public Sector, so we're a new firm altogether. We provide management and technology consulting. Happy to talk all about it outside if you'd like to come join us at our booth. But we're committed to the public sector, just like many of you in this room. That's the work that I've been doing for the last 15 years, working alongside my clients in state and local government. And my passion and the work that I do is really around people and change. So I focus on talent and transformation of that talent through the evolution of whatever change is coming their way, whether it be technology, processes, whatever that may look like. But really, our workforce is the fundamental and really the valuable asset that we have within our organizations, whether you're in public or private sector. So what I want to talk about a little bit today is how we can equip our people with the tools and resources in order to better provide the customer service that we all expect. So that's what we're going to go over today. There's lots of statistics out there, and you guys see this in your everyday work and your encounters. You expect top customer service from the businesses that you frequent, and that does also extend into the public sector services that you encounter. You expect it to be accurate, you expect it to be efficient, and you expect it to be quick. But I would say one of the statistics that I think is really interesting, that if you guys can see up here on the stage, 84% of people say being treated like a person is the most important thing. Seems pretty fundamental that we treat each other like human beings, but sometimes that's not the case. And I would say that within our public sector interactions, sometimes they can be so general and generic across the board that we forget to treat each other like people. So that's one thing that I would like us to think about as we're talking about customer service and how we actually engage our workforce. So we have a different world that we work within in the public sector. In the private sector, there's a lot of competition that drives innovation, which also lends to enhancing our customer service and loyalty. That's a little different than what we experience in public sector. We have some constraints that we work within, right? We all know this. We've got elements around kind of the cycles that we work within in terms of elections, changes in administration, procurement. We were just talking a lot about that, looking at our budgeting. And so with that, it impacts our actual experience with our customer. So they may experience a fragmented interaction. They may not know where to go first if they have a question or a query. And so it can be a little disruptive and challenging. And that also then can be challenging internally within an agency and a department. And so as I mentioned, I focus on people transformation. And so that's usually the area that I help my clients focus on, is how can we actually create a more cohesive approach whenever we're doing business, and how can we actually think about, how can staff be engaged and empowered despite some of the challenges. So I'm going to talk about some ways to do that. And I do want to give a shout out actually to Andrew, because he really kind of set me up. Because what I would say is that we talked a lot about on the sessions this morning around process, having streamlined processes, understanding what are the core steps, eliminating waste in what we provide. We talked about having appropriate technologies in place, making sure that we're upgrading, that we're innovating, that we're making sure that we can provide services and communication in real time and meeting people where they're at. But what I would say that we're not necessarily maybe focusing on, and what I would like to highlight, is around the people element. So our people are really the drivers of providing that better customer service that we all look for. So how can we do that? How can we actually equip them with the skills and resources to do so? And what I would say is, first, we need to have a customer service strategy. We need to have that North Star. We talked about that at first, right? We need to know where we're headed so everyone can be driving in the same direction. So this may seem very basic, but there are often times when I've worked with clients where they have talked about we just aren't getting the results that we'd want. We aren't seeing the interactions with our customer that we would expect. And so when we drive into the reasons why, we're looking at fundamentally, do we have a customer service strategy that's really gearing everyone in the same direction? Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. And so one way to make sure that everyone is aware of that is through there's three core elements in your employee life cycle that I would say you need to focus on. The first is onboarding. The second is in investing and growing. And the third, although it's not sexy and we don't like to talk about it a lot, is succession planning. So within these three areas, let's talk about how you can really embed that customer service strategy that we've already defined as our North Star and we're all marching towards it, but how do we embed it in those three core areas that is part of the employee life cycle? So with onboarding, what I would say is here is a phenomenal opportunity. You have this new shiny employee that is excited. They came to the public sector because they are mission driven. They are excited about preparing and providing that service to their constituents and making a difference in the world. So here is a golden opportunity for all of the leaders here in the room within your department and agency to set the stage of what it means to provide customer service for your agency. So thinking about how can we set the stage and set the expectation of what customer service is for. We've talked a lot about the DMV. We've talked a lot about, within Amy, within your organization with CDT. So what does it mean to provide customer service within your agency or department? Great first opportunity to do so. So as folks are moving along, they have been performing, they're moving and grooving, they're doing all the things that they need. They understand the expectation of what's expected of them when it comes to providing customer service. They know who their customer is. They know the strategy that's set out. Then we look at how can we continue to improve? How can we continue to invest and grow our people? And really here, I would say, it's really about inspiring and innovating that whole culture of customer service and continuous improvement. So there's a variety of ways to do this. You can continue to train. You can continue to really bring forward those who are superstars and sharing out those experiences. But one way that I have found to be really, really helpful is through competition. People are motivated by competition. They like to win, they like to play games. So I've worked with clients where we've developed different competition or gamification elements to customer service. And it can be as easy as, putting in performance metrics that are associated with how we do certain services and programs. But people really respond to this. And so something to think about could be including some element of how are we competing, how are we doing the best for our customer, and how are we demonstrating that, and celebrating those successes. So these are ways to kind of think about really inspiring and invigorating throughout that employee life cycle. So we've onboarded our employees, they know where they're headed. We're continuing to get them excited about providing excellent customer service through whether it's different games or rewards. And then eventually they may take the opportunity to retire or leave the agency or department. So this is a sticky area altogether. It's not easy for public sector, it's not easy for private sector or nonprofits. And across the board, this is a phenomenal opportunity to really capture that institutional knowledge. And it's not just about the institutional knowledge on what we do, but I would posit that it's really around how we do our work and what matters most to the customer. So when we're thinking about that customer experience and that customer engagement, when people are leaving our agency, here's an opportunity really to allow them to leave a legacy and thinking about what they provide in terms of customer service. What has worked? What has maybe not worked? Let's talk about those things and make sure that we're making folks aware of that, enhancing that engagement. So those 3 areas are critical and where we see are typically underutilized when thinking about how we equip our workforce. When they're onboarded, when we're invigorating them throughout their investment and navigating their career, and then lastly, when they're leaving the agency. How do we capture that knowledge? How do we capture all of that good work that people have been putting in? So some of you may look at this and think, Kristen, those are all HR responsibilities. That's not really something that I need to do. This is something that typically we'll have our talent folks carry out. And so what I would challenge you all is to say you are leaders in your agency or organization, or you work in public sector and help leaders. This is a critical way to actually keep the knowledge, the understanding, and propel forward the expectation of customer service for the workforce of today and the talent of tomorrow. So that's my rah-rah challenge for everyone. People are at the center of this. We can have phenomenal technology put in place. We can have the most streamlined processes, but if we don't capture the hearts and minds of our people working in the public sector to really continue to get excited about the work that they're doing, be challenged by the mission-driven work, and be looking at how we interact and provide that service in a way that is wanted and at the top of the quality realm, then it's kind of for naught. So focusing on the people is critical. So with that, people are our most valuable asset, and we really just scratched the surface on thinking about different ways and different techniques on how to look at the entire employee life cycle. I'd love to take any questions that you might have, or also continue the conversation out at our booth outside as well. Any questions from the group when thinking about how you engage and inspire your employees around customer service? Free.
I'm curious why you didn't talk in more detail about the hiring.
Sorry, would you just wait one moment for the microphone?
Hi, I'm curious why you didn't speak in more detail about the hiring process, especially in the public sector, and the ways that you might look for folks who are more customer service oriented than others in the hiring process and the retention process, I suppose.
It's a great question. So around hiring, I actually think that there's a phenomenal opportunity when it comes to hiring and sourcing for public sector. I think if we look at right now we have 5 generations in the workforce. First time in history you've ever had that. When we're looking at millennials and actually Gen Z coming up, which is kind of crazy, they're already in the workforce, and we think that millennials are all the rage. They are focused on purpose-driven work. So inherently, they actually have an interest. We have this incredible advantage in the public sector to capture those individuals who are already wanting to do this type of work. So we can get them in the door, but it's typically keeping them here with us. So it's the motivating them, it's setting the expectation that is really important to keep them with us. People are interested. We just want to make sure they keep that interest up.
Could you talk a little bit more about the key performance metrics around customer service, some specific examples?
Sure. So one of the clients that we worked with, they were having challenges where, people were maybe not responding as quickly as they would have liked. And so that was one KPI, key performance indicator, that they put in place was, listen, you may not know the answer to a query, but at least give a response. Let people know that I heard you. Thank you for your question or your query. We're working on it. And so they had expectations that you would at least put something in within 24 hours, for instance. It could be less, depending on whatever your situation is. But it could be timeliness. It could be, how we actually provide our services. Another client wanted to make sure that, and this was spoken earlier in the panel, is that you didn't have to figure out the business of government, that you could go in any door and be routed to where you needed to go. So you wouldn't call a number and they would say, oh, that's not me, that's so-and-so. Typically people don't know that they have to call 5 different departments in order to get the service that they're looking for. So this agency in particular wanted to be a one-stop shop, and so they set that expectation from the beginning and said, listen, we are providing a service across the board. They don't need to know our business. We know our business, and we're going to route them to where they need to go. So those are some examples, and you can track those metrics, and then you could reward people for doing really well on that. Any other questions or ideas on things that have worked in your agency that you'd like to share? No, all running smoothly and great customer service every day. Well, happy to continue the conversation. If you'd like to outside, we have a booth. And on behalf of Guidehouse, we're really excited to be here. We're headquartered here in Sacramento, and California has doing some really phenomenal, innovative work, and we're excited to bring Route 50 to Northern California. So thank you. Thank you for joining us this morning.